Hey guys, and welcome back. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend so far. I know we've been enjoying it, and we've had some fantastic guests so far who have come along and spoken to us about everything from the UFOs to their own personal experiences within the paranormal. Today's guest is one who I've been catching up with quite recently through quite a lot of books. I've actually found that there is a fascination with this certain house, and it is in Iowa as well, which is great because I actually have family who live there, and I think that's the reason why I've taken so much of an interest in it. But if you know anything about the paranormal, this house does not need any introductions, and neither does my next guest. Now, Mr. Johnny Hauser has spent his lifetime investigating and also caretaking of the Villisca axe murder house. So I'm going to speak to Johnny right now. So hi, Johnny.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, living the dream here in Villisca, Iowa.
Yeah, it kind of. I think it's a bit of a strange time, though, isn't it, at the moment? And even stranger because the veil's thinning, obviously, for Halloween.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just everything is weird. You know, what we do is weird, but it's just like stepped up to level 10 this year.
I think this time of year, everybody's so busy, aren't they? So I do thank you for taking the time to speak to me.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mentioned, obviously, I do have family in the Iowa region. A lot of my family emigrated across to America from my great-great-grandfather. So I have family all over the US, which is fantastic. But the one thing that kind of struck a chord is when I started to research a little bit about the history of Iowa. And the one thing that stood out was the axe murder house and the Moore family and everything that surrounds that. Now, I know that you caretake that house. So how did you come about to kind of look after it?
Oh, wow. Looking back now, it's almost like puzzle pieces. I can see everything sort of lining up to position me in what I do at the axe murder house. And the reason I say that is I was going back through my mom, and all my family lived like down south in Arkansas area. And my mom has all these photo albums and like borderline OCD mental disorder, like from the 70s on up, all in chronological order. And I was going through them one day, just laughing at how dumb I looked in the 80s, you know, as a weird little kid. And I come across a picture of the axe murder house before it was like a museum, like it had green siding on it and stuff. And I was like, Mom, what's this all about? And she pulls it out. She reads the back of it. She goes, oh, yeah, you were a little kid and we were driving through Iowa and you insisted that we drive by it so you could take a picture of it. I don't remember any of this.
Wow.
And so as I got older, I became a musician. I played with this gal out in Nashville, Tennessee for about 10 years or so. Really got sick of that life and just somehow ended up in Villisca. And I'm like, oh, the axe murder house. And I would walk down every day and talk to Darwin Lynn, who owned it at the time. And just bugged him with question after question. And he's like, do you just want a job? You're here all the time. I might as well pay you to do something. And that was before any of the TV shows hit or any ghost hunting shows were on TV at all. And I said, absolutely. Just basically so I could have the keys to the place. And then I ended up becoming best friends with an 80-some-year-old man, Darwin. Right at that time, Mary Peckham, the neighbor that found the bodies the next morning, the next door neighbor. I mean, we're like, the houses are 15 feet away on the same plot of land. That comes open out of the blue. So I end up moving in there. And then I was at the museum that we used to have, and there's a desk, and I opened the drawer, and a book caught the top of the desk and like opened up as I opened the drawer. And I see the name Ted Hauser. That's my uncle. Married Cheryl Bowes, yeah. Turn the page, see the name John Murrin, who's been my best friend since 7th grade. John Murrin, senior father, mother, Rosalind Jane Moore. And I looked at the front of the book, and it was a family tree of the Moore family.
Wow.
So through marriage, like not direct descendant, but my best friend is a direct descendant. And I called him, I'm like, your mom's related? He's like, oh, yeah, she's family of that thing you do over there? Like, you didn't tell me this? Like,
no. So going back to obviously 1912, it was the evening of the 9th of June when the Moore family went to church, and they came back, and the book as it reads, and the history books kind of state that they were murdered in their sleep, along with two of their daughter's friends, who weren't members of the family. And their bodies weren't found, which obviously you've just mentioned Mary. She actually found those bodies, didn't she, the next morning?
Well, she was I'm actually, the interview we're doing now is from Mary Peckham's old bedroom. So,
wow.
She was doing her laundry in the backyard at 4 a.m., which blows my mind that anyone would be doing laundry at 4 in the morning. But within a few hours, she was just like, something's not right. And she made a series of phone calls to relatives and stuff. And in between the time, a farmhand kind of made his way down. And long story short, the brother Ross Moore was the first to enter the house, and Mary just stayed on the porch.
Mm-hmm.
So she was kind of the first to alert it, thinking something's not right here. And Ross walked into the downstairs bedroom, found Ina and Lena, and then the authorities came down, and they went upstairs and found 6 more bodies.
It's just madness, isn't it? But what's even more madness is that they've never caught the killer, have they?
No idea who did it. You know, everybody tells me, oh, the killer hid in the attic and waited for him to fall asleep, and which probably the case. I still kind of reply, how do you know? Like, we don't know anything at all. All we know for sure, 8 people were murdered in that house. The axe was left there. Raw bacon on the floor. The mirrors were covered by the killer, and this person ate a meal afterwards.
Yeah, because he actually tended to the livestock as well, didn't he? After that's what is portrayed. Obviously, looking through some of the research, but you know what kind of a person would actually do that? Murder, 6 children. The adults, yeah, fair enough, but 6 children, and especially, it strikes me to say that the killer mustn't have realized that the 2 young girls were in the downstairs bedroom at the time.
Exactly. And a lot of local lore here in town was, it's a hired hit against JD. Well, they had guns and knives back then. Find them in an alley, Like, Ina and Lena did nothing to anyone. None of these kids did.
No.
And there's the argument of, Ina and Lena could have woke up and identified. Well, they were hit so many times it was just overdone. Like, This is just a madman. And to eat a meal after you do this, my brain doesn't even wrap around it.
Yeah, it doesn't show any remorse at all, does it? It's just, it is mindless, and just, those innocent people as well. But you mentioned that you currently reside in Mary Peckham's house now. Now, I know that obviously since the 1900s, since the 1912, when this axe murder happened, that things started to occur within the house and on the property. And then obviously, when did that kind of start for you?
It started for me as far as the axe house or Mary Peckham's house.
Just any of it.
Yeah,
really. It's like we kind of touched upon, didn't we, how you come to be the kind of caretaker of the axe house. But how did your experiences start either there and also in your own home?
So as far as the axe house, what drew me there was really the kids. Like, you just don't mess with little kids, and the true crime aspect of it. Back then, I was very much into aliens and government conspiracies, which I still am, But I didn't really put much thought into ghosts. I go to clean the house one day. First month I work there, and I hear somebody walk across the upstairs and shut a dresser drawer. And I knew it was a dresser because it makes like a sound when you shut it. And when I moved to Villisca, the town police quit, the only one in town. So there was a period of 8 years of 0 police anywhere around here. And I'm sitting there like, what do I do? Well, you can call daddy, like go boot this dude out of here. So I go upstairs, nothing's up there at all. I'm like, okay. So I tell some of my friends and they're like, oh, houses make noise. Like, man, I know what a footstep is. I'm not a complete idiot, you know? So I started first looking for, are there speakers? Is there a floorboard I step on that makes a door shut? Like there's got to be something. And at this point, I've done well over 400 overnights alone in that house, which is more than anyone ever has. And I mean, that house has changed. Every single overnight I've ever done is different. It's almost like a different location each time you're in it. And I tell people it's like rose red. Like I think that house is its own entity haunting itself, and it morphs and it changes, and it will give you anything, whatever you're looking for, it'll give you. It's like a mirror. Like it's just going to reflect back to you what you are, you know. I watch people go in, oh, we had a great night. The kids hugged us and played ball and kissed me on the hand. And the next night, the investigators are running out of there at 10 p.m., left half their gear. I got to mail back. Like, how is this the same place, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think the family's there at all. I honestly don't, which may be controversial to some purists of the axe murder house, but I really don't. I mean, there's stuff there that, assuming a child from 1912 stays a child from 1912, it's stuff that they would never be doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there for a month, we were getting EVPs in French. There are zero French ties to this town.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah, makes it hard to believe, doesn't it? When, you know, you sit there and you're reviewing all of your EVPs and you're having second languages and things come through, and it's kind of like, I wonder what this is all about. So in your opinion, with that, what would you say is haunting the axe murder house?
I have two theories. One was something was there before the murders even happened, because the confession that the Reverend Kelly gave, the only one that was ever tried, he was acquitted of all charges, tried for the death of Lena, full of hung jury, Ina acquittal. He said in 1918, a shadow came out of the back shed and handed him an axe. 1918, nobody's talking about shadow figures. I can remember in the 80s, shadow figures were aliens, and then they were interdimensional time travelers, and now they're the spookiest of ghosts. Like, nobody's talking about shadow figures in 1918. They just thought this guy's out there. And he was talking about like the shadow made him like in a dream state, like he would never hurt anybody, but it was like he was doing something out of his control, which is very close to the DeFeo story with the Amityville.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, because, you know, could it have been that he was possessed at that time by some unknown being, you know, and that being is still residing in that house and, you know, speaking in these second languages, because we all know what happens with possessions, don't we? Absolutely.
And like Villisca, there is no Villisca anywhere on this planet but right here. The word means nothing. It's because it's Waliska, which in the Meskwaki language means evil spirit.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's right in the Iowa history books, you know. I also think, you know, you walk into a room where somebody had an argument, you feel that negative energy. It's real. Energy doesn't go away. You know, something like this, it had an atom bomb of negative energy dropped on it. Maybe that energy can manifest in whatever it wants to, and somehow the house is just haunting itself. And I also think inviting investigators in night after night after night, you know, in the 30s and 40s, they were doing seances in the house. That's always a great idea. You know, who knows what's even in that place?
Back then, they were all the rage, you know, going to a known, you know, place of tragedy and having, you know, these seances, trying to bring back the spirits of these, you know, the so-called deceased in the houses. So the 30s and the 40s, you know, it was, you know, fashion, wasn't it, to be seen to be going to a seance, whereas now, you know, you say seance to some, and I don't want to call them normal people, because we are all normal, but, you know, to these people who don't have the interests that we have, you know, as soon as you say, oh, I'm going to a seance, they're like, oh, you shouldn't mess around with things like that. But maybe they did mess around with something in the house. Maybe they left something there, and, you know, maybe whatever was there previously is still there, but obviously in a different form, rather than, you know, the sweet children that the paranormal investigators think that are there.
Yeah. And what better, if you're some nasty entity, what a better thing to do than pretend to be a little kid.
Exactly.
You know, and I just don't buy it. Like, I think, and the place doesn't really bug me to the point that it used to. And I think, I honestly went in there one day and I'm like, okay, guys, like, whatever's here, like, you need to lay off me, because without me doing these tours, you don't have people to mess with every night. So, like, we got to have some boundaries here, which is a very Norman Bates thing for me to do. But I think that place is, something was there before and a bunch has been added since, and who even knows what's happening there. I mean, it's just like a perfect storm some nights.
Yeah. So what is the most prolific thing that's happened to you in that house?
Well, I went through a good year of, okay, I'm going to get to the bottom of what's haunting this, from learning how to speak Meskwaki, going with the native angle, to the kids, to anything. And then I thought, I wonder if this place just feeds on fear in new people. It just loves messing with people. So I brought an elementary school teacher down who writes poetry and like does none of this at all. And I knew she would go with my stupid harebrained ideas. So I'm putting her in different positions in the house and just trying things. I'm in the barn with the radio, like, anything? No. Okay, I'm going to try this. Go here. Anything? No. So I go in, I put her in the kids' room closet upstairs. She's with the door shut, and I start playing like heavy metal music in the house. I'm just trying anything, you know. And I stop it, and she goes, okay, it's getting weird in here. So I go in the closet with her, start doing an EVP session.
Mm-hmm.
Right then, somebody walks in the house, and I'm just like, somebody just broke. And we're streaming this live, and everybody's hearing the footsteps. Like, it's so loud, it's catching on the microphone and the camera. And it starts walking upstairs, and I'm like, we got to get out of here. And she's like, no, we're staying in the closet. I'm like, we're not staying here. Like, we're having this argument. Finally, and poor girl is like chewing on her nails and bawling her eyes out. And I've had enough of it. And I just wait for it to come in the room, and I kick that closet door open as hard as I can, hoping to get the element of surprise on this person. It's nothing. And it was just like something knocked the wind out of me. And I always heard the stories of, oh, I felt a cold breeze, like I opened my ice chest, and I thought, yeah, everybody says that. It's true. Like that was the feeling. It was freezing in there. And I was kind of like, all right, here we go. But I didn't want to push the issue with her. So I just kind of called it and got her out of there. And that was pretty intense, because it was so loud and so blatant that the thought of a ghost never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
It's like, this is somebody broke in the house.
Did she have any kind of experiences after that? Did she, or did she just go about her business like nothing had happened?
She went down the rabbit hole for a week. It was the next day she got in a car wreck.
Wow.
Was blaming it on the ghosts. And I was quick to just say, stop going down this hole. You probably got in a car wreck because we had like 8 inches of snow that night. And the guy slid through the stop and just fender bender, you know?
Yeah.
So I gave her a St. Michael pendant to wear, and like, she's never done it again. And it took probably 2 weeks for her to stop. You know, it's like maybe something in the house, but if you start going down that hole, you're going to start willing bad things to happen to you.
Exactly, yeah.
You just got to stop. Just stop.
And is she still friends with you now?
Yeah, she's still friends. Still a teacher, and I've told her, it's like, let's go ghost hunting. She's like, no, I'm good. You know, I feel bad, but in the name of science, I guess.
Yeah, I think you have to explore those avenues, though, don't you, with skeptics alike, and, you know, doing things that people wouldn't normally hear. I mean, my partner he's not paranormal minded. He's not not anything. And I took him to the Black Monk house, and he just walked around like there was nothing and anything in there. And he was like, it's just a house. And that was it. It was kind of like, but I've had my own experiences in there. And, you know, when I tell him things, he's like, oh, I don't believe it until I see it myself. So for her to have an experience like that and have you there to kind of validate that probably does, you know, probably scares people, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I have never seen somebody like the cartoon chewing their nails. They were so scared. And as soon as I kicked that door open and came out, like I was ready to like, just, okay, I'm going to have to like throw down with some burglar in the house. But she was just like right on my back every step, you know. She was terrified, and I felt kind of bad for taking it that far, but I didn't expect it to go that far. You know?
But I think, you know, moving on from that though, now you've been in that house so many times, so you know every single little creak, every little noise that that happens. So you automatically will know if there is anybody in that house or if there aren't.
Yeah. And as weird as it sounds, like the house has moods from day to day. Like there's times I'll go in there and it's just like, oh, grandma, boring house, you know. Or other times I'll go in and it's just like, not today, Satan. You know, like, no, bad vibe. And I'll conduct day tours, and I don't tell anyone anything because I don't want to put stuff into their mind. I want to see their genuine reaction. And on those bad days, people are gone within 5-10 minutes. Usually I have to kick people out of there. They just want to sit and sit and sit, you know, and ghost hunt and hope something happens. But those days where it's really bad, everybody picks up on that vibe. It's very uncomfortable in there sometimes.
Yeah. So with obviously your house, which is next door, what experiences have you had since you know, obviously you look after the next door's house, the Black Murder house. You have a family of your own. Mm-hmm. How does that affect your house and where you live and your family?
Well, now the family is just me, my son, daughter, you know, so it's really, I kind of wonder if it's had an effect in that situation of it. When I first moved in, well, at that time it was my wife and my daughter. My daughter starts talking about, well, I'll back up a little bit. My very first night in this house, I had a dream, and the dream was like a bird's eye view of the Moore house, and I could see the kids playing, Sarah hanging up laundry, and JB walks out, kisses Sarah, says, got to go to work. And I woke up, and out loud I said, Mary Peckham knew more. And I stayed up for like 2 days researching everything I could on Mary Peckham, which is not a lot out there. My daughter starts talking about Hattie this, Hattie that, Hattie, and it's like, whatever. Pretty soon she won't sleep upstairs because Hattie scares her. I'm like, who is Hattie? She goes, that's the woman who lives upstairs. I'm like, you're a creepy little kid, man. And so when Darwin passed away, I was going over the deeds of the houses, and I found where Mary Peckham died 6 months after the murders from a nervous breakdown. The house then went to her adult daughter, Hattie Peckham, which is the same name that my daughter was saying, and her bedroom was my daughter's bedroom. Years go by. I'm giving my son a bath, and he's in the tub, 2 years old at that time. And he's just going, bye, Dad, bye, Grace, like the two names he knows. And then he looks up, he goes, bye, Hattie. I was like, what? He goes, bye, Hattie. He doesn't know that story. He's 2 years old at that time.
Yeah.
Doors open, closing, objects move, you know, just the normal stuff, kind of same at the Axe house. My wife and I divorced. I often wonder if any of that had anything to do, or maybe not. Who knows? Yeah, who cares?
There's so many conspiracy theories, isn't there? That, you know, the bad kind of omens, you know, kind of bring things like that on.
Yeah.
But I suppose, you know, if anything's meant to be, it will be, won't it? And obviously, you were meant to be at that house. You know, that's what we've kind of established so far. You're supposed to be there. You're supposed to be looking into everything to do with that house.
And, you know, last week, and nobody knows this yet, but like last week, I was sitting here and my part-time person texted me. She goes, somebody is over here that claimed to have lived in your house in the 80s and she wants to come see it. So unless you want some random coming in your house, like pretend you're not there, you know? And so I thought, well, I'd kind of like to talk to this person. So they come over and they're talking about how much the house has changed, and they're quiet for about 5 minutes and they go, when I was a little kid, like weird stuff happened in this house and it centered around this room, and was talking about the same Hattie room. And they go, I would lay in there and it's like somebody would come in and give me a back rub. And so I was jokingly like, oh, I'm definitely asleep in there tonight so I can get a free ghost back rub out of the deal. And she goes, I don't remember it being bad, but something good. Like I felt like it was an old lady, and her name started with an H, but I can't remember what it was. I'm like, Hattie, you know? So that's like validation from 3 different.
Yeah.
And one of the weird things that we can't keep forks in this house. 0 forks. Like all the forks are gone all the time. And I make my kids, it's just me, my son, daughter. We're going to eat at the table, phones down, tablets down. Let's talk. And so no silverware leaves the kitchen. I went to a thrift store or Goodwill, and I'm always looking for art that's worth a lot of money. You know, I never found it, but I find this bag of silverware, 200 spoons, 300 and some forks, 100 and some knives. I'm like, I'm buying this. So I bring it home, wash it up. All those forks are gone. There's over 300 missing forks in this house.
You'll probably find them all one day, won't you, when you're ripping up some floorboards or something?
Well, see, I had a dream, which right out this door is like a crawl space into the attic. And the dream, again, I opened up the crawl space and all the forks were stuck to the inside of the ceiling. I haven't looked yet, and I probably will never look, because if they are, one of 2 things are happening. A ghost is stealing my forks, or 2, I'm doing it and I have no idea. And that's some Norman Bates stuff don't even want to know.
I was just about to say, have you not like rigged up a camera so far just to see where these forks are going?
I have cameras in my house, and now that I have the house to myself and I don't have the ex telling me, no, you're not doing this crazy stuff. Now I'm just kind of on a roll. Like, let's see how far we can take this and what I can find.
That's madness, isn't it?
Yeah.
So missing forks. I think in my house it's usually teaspoons, and I usually find them in the kids' bedrooms, and you know, along with half of my crockery and you know, those chocolate bars that you go to the supermarket and buy, and you can never find them when you want one. They're usually there.
Exactly. Yeah, I've looked in every inch of this house. They're nowhere.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're a ghost and you have the power of changing mankind's view of life after death, and all you're doing with that is stealing forks, which is probably what I would do. So
yeah. Well, you never know. If you happen to do go in the loft space, make sure you live stream it. I'd definitely be watching that. It'll
be like Geraldo when he was doing the searching for Capone's cave, this big build up, and finally get in there, nothing.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I mean, and people always say that though, don't they? They'd rather watch a paranormal show with no activity than have a paranormal show and have so much faked activity.
Absolutely.
So, you know, that's the usual norm now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything for entertainment purposes, and it's a little bit mind numbing every now and again. But your dreams that you've had. When you first started looking after the house and you moved into your house, did you have recurrent dreams about anything?
Wow, yeah. And I've always had weird things happen from a little kid. I had like a 2-week dream about UFOs, which was like every night was a continuation from the dream I had the night before, almost like a mini series, you know, and it freaked me out so much. It's like, please God, make me stop having these dreams. And, you know, it stopped. But when I was a little kid, and I've always said there's haunted houses and haunted people, you know, when I was a little kid, I fell out of a 2-story house, crawled out the top story window when my mom was doing laundry. They didn't even have to take me to the hospital, not a scratch, nothing.
Wow.
Mom's always like, oh, the angels were with you that day. And every house I have ever lived in has had weird stuff happen in it. And I've gone back to those houses as an investigator now, and knocked at the door, which is super awkward. Like, hey, you used to live here? Anything weird happen? And everybody's like, no, nothing at all. Super calm. So I think this is all kind of, I think people are chosen to do what they do for sure. And as far as, I had another dream where Darwin, the owner of the accident, because I used to always joke with him, man, when you die, you're going to have to tell me who did it, as a ghost. He's like, oh, I will. And he came back. I was really upset when he passed away, and I fell asleep. And I've never put much stock into dreams until these kind of start happening. He comes to me and he goes, I had to come with Mary Peckham because I'm a new spirit and I couldn't do it on my own. He goes, you don't need to go in and yell and scream in haunted houses. Ghosts aren't all bad. What do they have to be mad about? And I woke up. And that was just such a profound, like, wow. Like, do new spirits have to come with an older spirit? Because you never hear of a house being haunted from someone that died 2 weeks ago. It's always 100 years ago, the woman in the white dress,
It is quite strange though, isn't it? Because, recently there's been so many people who I know have passed away, and you kind of get to the point where you're, it's really, I find it macabre more than anything, because a friend of mine sent me some pictures of this person who was passing away. I'm trying to sort of like be diplomatic now. And on this picture, I could clearly see that there were 4 other people there, clearly, as clear as day. And I actually said to him, do you know who this person is? Do you know who this person is? Do you know who this person is? And he said, I know who that one is, and I know who that one is, and I know who that one is. He said, but I don't know who this one is. And then he found out about 3 weeks previous that this other person had passed away at the same time, but he wasn't as solid as the other 2. He was very, very see-through sort of thing. And obviously I'm a medium, so obviously when I was speaking to him, I obviously knew that this person was passing away, and it was at that time where the end was near, and the pictures that he sent me were very harrowing. He kept saying to me, please, can you just give me some comfort and find out when this is going to happen? I said, it's not long. I said, these people have come to collect him. I said, he's not going to be of this world very much longer. And I hated that. And that was quite upsetting. So listen to you speak about Darwin and how you had a great friendship and everything. It is quite upsetting. And especially if he's come back to you with Mary Peckham, that in itself just means, she's obviously still around you, and she's still, bringing these people back through to communicate with you.
Yeah. And I feel like, I thought if Hattie or Mary was in my daughter's room watching my daughter sleep and that was scaring her, they knew, like Hattie Peckham knew what happened to those kids. The more children used to play over here. Mary was like a grandma to them. They're probably just protecting my kids, making sure it never happens again. And they're probably just protecting me as well,
Yeah. I think that's probably what they're there for, is as protectors, like you say. And, even I think in one of the books that I read, there was a little extract from yourself saying that, your daughter was a little bit scared because she was quite mean looking. And I think that's just the kind of portrayal of the women back in those days, weren't they? They would be quite feisty, they would be quite mean, and they would stand up for the family, even though they were the homemakers. They were the backbone, weren't they, of the family?
Oh, absolutely. And some of these, anybody from the late 1800s, early 1900s in Iowa are going to be tough as nails people, because it was tough, hard living back then. So they're not going to be like Miss Universe supermodel. They're going to be some sturdy, like, gray, just like looking back to some of my school teachers when I was a kid, they were that way. Very kind of
I just find it fascinating, even, you know, like looking back through history from here, and how easy we have it nowadays. You know, you can talk to somebody in a different country like we are, and, you know, back then it would be mail, it would be riding horses, it would be, you know, there was no motor cars, and, you know, nowadays people just live, you know, well beneath that, well beyond their means, sort of thing, don't they? But
Absolutely.
I suppose it's great though in this day and age, because we do have the travel to be able to come to these properties that are haunted, and, you know, I think it's great what you're doing, because you're keeping that memory alive of that family who lived there, and the more family will obviously appreciate that. But I think Mary Peckham appreciates that even more, because you're actually you're actually keeping her house alive, and you're keeping her memory alive, as well as Hattie's, which I think is a fantastic job that you're doing. But is there anywhere else that you've visited apart from your axe murder house, and you've had some experiences that you physically can't explain?
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like when I first came to the axe house, you know, is when I really started investigating the axe house, and really investigating in general. Is before really any of the shows started coming. And I don't watch a lot of TV. So for longest time, I was like, are there people do this? And they do it together, and they have matching t-shirts and like teams and stuff. I had no idea. And then the shows started coming on. I, of course, became a fan of all the shows and stuff. So I really cut my teeth at the Axe Murder House. And then all these other places kind of start popping up. It's like, oh, I can go here and investigate. So that's when I started going to other places. Hooked up with Nick Groff, and he's been nice enough to bring me along with a lot of stuff he's done with Nick Groff tours and just personal stuff. So I've been all over the country to old prisons, insane asylums, serial killer houses, private residences. Like I went pretty deep in it for many, many years. And the Sally House in Atchison, Kansas was one of the creepier experiences that I've ever had. But I'm not trying to toot the horn of the Axe Murder House, but a lot of these places, which were really cool, I'd spend, and you know the name of the game, sometimes just nothing happens, but I'd be sitting there and it's like, oh, that's a footstep. Whoopee. If I was at the Axe House, I would have had this by now, you know, which isn't always the case. I think Nick and I have been talking a lot about, you know, we're all on our own adventures. We're on our own journey, our own quest. I'm looking for something different than what you're looking for. So maybe these locations are going to give me what I'm looking for one night, where you have no experience if me and you were together. And I'm saying, man, are you seeing all this? And you're like, I'm not seeing or hearing anything, you know. So I did a thing with Mark and Debbie Constantino. We put 6 digital recorders right next to each other. Same make, same model, same setting, same batteries out of the same pack.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Like 3 of them would get EVPs and the rest wouldn't.
Yeah. And it's strange that, isn't it? Because I've worked on an evenings, and we've had 5 voice recorders. 3 are the same, 3 are very different. But all of them at exactly the same time. 3 of them would pick something up, the others wouldn't. And is it the frequency that they communicate on, that they're not going to, you know, or do they cherry pick? Or we're going to listen to this, we're going to do this. It's like when you have somebody speak to you. I was in a group of probably 8 people, and I was talking about something, and it was a dream that I'd had. But then all of a sudden, I'd mentioned this place, and I heard this voice, this man's voice, say to me, "I told you that." And I caught it on the voice recorder, and nobody else heard it but me. And I did the usual screaming, because it was pitch black in this item. I was screaming like an idiot. And I was like, oh. And my partner sits there and says, "You're such a scaredy cat." And I'm like, I'm not. Put me in a dark room and I'm absolutely fine. Yeah. But when you jump out on me, or you do something that is going to scare me, then yeah, I'm going to scream.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I think, you know, I think it's to do with frequency. And I also think that certain things are cherry picked for certain people.
Yeah.
Maybe that night was meant for you, for your personal journey. It's like the old choose your own adventure books. If you want to go down the hallway, turn to page 23. Like, we're not all going to have the same experiences. And I learned that from being with Nick or with other buddies of mine that I trust with my life, that I know they're not lying. And they're like, you're not hearing this? And I'm like, no, I don't even have a weird feeling,
I think that's great though, isn't it though? If you're with a group of people who you trust explicitly, then, and you're not having any sort of experiences, but they are, who's to say that we can say to somebody, oh, you must be feeling that, you must be, I totally agree with you. It's about everybody's own personal experiences. And I think until somebody has had their own experiences inside any haunted location, they can't dismiss anybody else's.
Yeah, absolutely. And perception is such a weird thing anyway, Like, I always joke the past does not even exist. Like, because I'll talk to my friends. Remember when we were in 8th grade and we went to this party and we were all together, but we all have completely different recollection, like remembering of what happened, like if we were to hear every single noise and smell and insect and car, we would go insane. Our brains would take little shortcuts and then connect the dots. And so everybody really sees everything differently.
Yeah.
So we can't judge whether or not they've had an experience. And I was kind of bad with that when I first started. It's like, oh yeah, they're just making it up to, or they're seeing it in their mind's eye, and I kept making, and then I was like, well, why aren't I seeing this? And I started getting upset because I remember one guy's like, there's a little kid in the corner. Can't you see him? I'm like, yeah, no, I see nothing, man. It's like, why? I want to see and I've still never seen a ghost. I have still never seen a ghost anywhere.
It is madness because even though being a medium as well, and obviously you do have those little more insights and things like that. But, I think when you do see something, well, when I saw something, she was just stood in the middle of my TV and it was kind of like, who are you? What are you doing here? And she spoke to me in what I now know as being Polish. And I had to ask my mother, I was like, Mum, why is she here? And my mum said, that's the lady who we bought the house from. That's her family. And I was shocked. And I was only about 15 at the time.
Wow.
And even then, looking back and saying to myself, am I normal? Why do I see things like this? Why do I hear things? Why do I smell things that aren't here? I'd walk into somebody's house and I'd be like, oh my God, that perfume's disgusting. What have you got on? And they were like, nothing. It smelled like, you remember when the children used to take the roses off the bushes and they used to stuff them full of inside the milk bottles and pour water in and then let it mush up for days and then you'd smell it and you're like, oh, I've made perfume. And so that's the sort of things we used to get up to when we were kids. But I think those memories though, even I think houses and buildings house memories that we all have, and they take that energy on board. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I often wondered, so Brad and Barry Kling from Ghost Lab, I was talking to them one year and they were saying how experiment with slamming something into the floor to create like a big slam, and he's like, sometimes you'll get EVPs out of those because they were stomping down steps and they said they got an EVP every stomp. So I thought, every one of these civilizations have folklore of talking forests. How can energy or a voice from the past soak into wood or into a house, and when the times are right or something happens, a voice can come. Was that the basis from this talking forest? Which is just a weird thought that went through my head, but I really think that, absolutely, you can walk into buildings and just feel love or feel weirdness or feel uncomfortable, and it's just the building, and usually something's happened, to cause that.
It's funny because I walked in, where I am now, I walked into my partner's house first of all, and I said, who's the lady? And he said, what? And
Uh-oh.
I said, I've just literally walked in and she just said, hello, dear. And I said, who's the lady? And I said, oh, the name of Thomas. And I said, that's connected to this house. And it was only until I spoke to the next door neighbours that she said to me, oh, yeah, they were called the Thomas family.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness. But yeah, just strange things like that happen all the time. And, you know, like dreams and things, you have dreams about certain things, about certain places and places that I've never actually been to before. And, you know, things that I've seen quite vividly, only for me to realize that they are actually real. And, you know, have you had any dreams recently that have caused you any sort of alarm? I'm reading you now, actually.
What's that?
I said, I feel like I'm reading you. It was like, I had this gentleman just say to me, ask him if he's had any recurring dreams recently. And I was like, I've asked him about his dreams already.
Well, like some of the questions you've been asking me, it's like, okay, did she like really research into me, like stuff that I didn't even know was out there on me? Because I've never told anyone that. Like you've been nailing stuff. I haven't really been having any weird dreams lately. Not really any that I remember, I guess. I did have kind of a strange one probably about a month ago, and it was just like the Exorcist Reagan face came out of nowhere, and I like woke up and like, oh, that's creepy. But my house is filled with all kinds of haunted objects, and all I do is watch scary movies every single day. And I work at the Axe Murder House. Like, I'm not going to be dreaming of unicorns and rainbows, you know.
That's my idea of heaven is that. I think, you know, it's better than selling glass bottles for a living.
Yeah.
I'd like to visit a murder house and just look after that and, you know, take these tours. But how many paranormal investigators would you say you've had through the doors of the house?
All of them. Like thousands and thousands and thousands. I've been there, I think, over 15 years at this point. And I've seen every possible investigator you can even imagine. I've seen it come in waves, you know, like certain trends will start. And I can remember when I first started, there was a lot of very militant paranormal groups that were like, you do this, you case the, take pictures, roll cables. And it's like, man, it's supposed to be fun, guys. You know, you can laugh and have fun while you do this.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of that's the stance that people should take, because they don't realize that laughter and, you know, that all that energy, you know, it transposes, doesn't it, into energy for the spirits to manifest. And
absolutely, the one group of all the years I've been doing this that stands out the most, they came, and I'm sitting at the barn, and they come walking across the yard, and it was July, and they're in period like 1800s clothing, wool clothes and stuff. And I'm just like, I seen them, and it's like, are they real? Like, are they real people or are they ghosts? Because they had it down, and they were the overnights. I'm like, okay, dressed kind of like Civil War era stuff.
Uh-huh.
So check them in, and they all go out to their vehicle, and they start loading in a banjo, a fiddle, spoon, or bones to play on.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we just like to go in and play period music for like an hour or two at these locations, whatever their time period was. So, and they go, you want to come in? I'm like, yep, here I come. Mm-hmm. And they sat there and played the piano and played 1900s, early 1900s era gospel, like bluegrass stuff. And they got that place lit up like I've never seen before. Like they weren't even ghost hunting. They were just playing music and doing things of that time.
Yeah,
that is a genius idea.
It's a Singapore theory, though, isn't it? That's what you do. You know, you dress up in the period costume, you play music, you invoke those memories from yesteryear, and I think that is a fantastic, you know, experiment in itself. And just to, you know, who would have thought that doing something like that would actually light up a house and bring the atmosphere to an absolute, you know.
Absolutely. And, you know, that got me thinking, it's like, what if I do a seance at a haunted location? I have no idea how to do a seance. And I don't care that if I do it right. I just want, like, sometimes I wonder if these spirits are looking at our gadgets like, come over to this pod with a big antenna that's lighting up all these lightning bolts and make it go out. Like, are they thinking, what are you even talking about? What is a pod? What are lights? So I thought every ghost in the world has to know what a seance looks like and what that means. So if I get a table with people and we hold hands, like, we don't even have to say anything, and we have like a candle. I don't know what I'm doing. Are the ghosts going to be like, oh, we know what this is? They want to talk to us. And so I did that once, and like, we're just kind of joking around, like, half kidding. Stuff started happening instantly. And so I was like, okay, maybe some of the stuff we're doing now, they have no clue what we're doing, and we're just wasting our time. Maybe if we go back, and I'm a big fan of Ed and Lorraine, come on. Like, I love taking it back to old school style of stuff. Let's simple it down a little bit.
I think you have to, though, sometimes, because technology nowadays is so easy to manipulate, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
We've got the internet, we've got hackers, we've got scammers, you've got everything. Who's to say that you cannot manipulate a spirit box? You can't manipulate the technological wizardry that has been used on these paranormal TV shows. I'm very much like that. I prefer, using my own senses, my own extra sensory perception. But then I also enjoy using like the dowsing rods and the pendulums and things like that. And people say you can manipulate those as well, but you can. But, when you get hits and everything's spot on, and for a fact that you're right, it's great, isn't it, especially when you get some sort of a validation a couple of weeks down the line as well.
Yeah. And anymore, like, I've come to realize in all the years I've been doing this, unless you have Abraham Lincoln's ghost in a Harvard laboratory for 2 years answering questions, you're not going to convince everybody or anybody, so anymore, I just go into places for my own personal experiences. I'm not out to prove anything. Because one thing, so I was painting in the Axe house one night, and I had a flashlight, and I set it on the floor, and I'm just sitting there painting because there's no lights in the house, and it's getting dark. The light turns off, and this was before anyone was doing the unscrew the back of the light bulb, so it's kind of a loose. Before any of that was on TV. I don't even know if Taps was on TV at this point. And so it turns off. I'm like, come on, guys, turn it back on. And it turned back on. So I grabbed my little flip phone I had back then and took a video, which is like 2 megapixel at this point. And I'm videotaping it. I'm like, turn it off, turns off, turn it on, turns on, turn it down low, goes down low. And then I picked it up after the end, and I slammed it on the floor 3 or 4 times to show it wasn't a loose connection of any kind. Mm-hmm. And I put that on YouTube, and I was so proud of it. And somebody goes, fishing line. Like, fishing line? Tell me how that works. Like, because last time I touched fishing line, it bends. And then
it starts with the haters, though, isn't it? Then they come out with, I love looking at these huge groups on Facebook, and you don't tend to have it much on Instagram, but I love reading in the groups where people obviously aren't paranormal investigators, and they think that orbs are orbs, and unfortunately they're not. And the amount of animosity towards these people who haven't educated themselves, but it's not their fault, is it? It's kind of like what's been brought about by entertainment, and just some of the sheer comments that are horrible and negative and just uncalled for. Really, they don't need to do anything like that.
No. Do you see Michael Jordan trolling people on Facebook? No, he's too busy being awesome and doing great things. He doesn't have time to sit there and do that. I mean, the Johnny Hauser verse that was put on Amazon Prime. I did that for VidiSpace, Nick and Elizabeth's company, and it's just supposed to be some just 1 hour live in the moment things. Well, then they ended up putting it on Amazon Prime, which was kind of like, oh, I didn't know you were going to do that. I would have put more into it, And I was reading some of the reviews, and some guy gave it 1 star. He's like, "This dude is literally just talking to himself in a room for an hour." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I'm doing." Don't know what else, you know.
Don't knock it until you've tried it, mate, eh?
Yeah. I had a lot of fun doing it, so hey.
Exactly, and that's the thing is, you know, you are on Villisca. I'm very lucky. I signed up to it quite a while ago, so I do kind of go on there and look at certain programs and things like that. Because obviously, since meeting Nick, you know, when he did the Black Monk House, I kind of follow him a little bit more now, and obviously started to follow you a little bit more, and then obviously Daniel and the G Crew.
Yep.
And it's funny how things have evolving, because, you know, back in 2016, it was kind of like I thought was quite a loner. I didn't really know anybody within the paranormal, and obviously you had Taps, you had Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson, and you do become embroiled into the shows when you I don't know, I kind of think I went through a kind of depressive state, and I just used to sit there and read more books and watch these ghost hunting shows and think, oh, do you know what? That's great, but I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I want to go out there and I want to find out what it is about this that everybody's raving on about. And then obviously I started with a festival and started in with Phantasmic Paranormal, and kind of just it grew, and it's kind of now I absolutely love this arena. It's, you know, I've met so many wonderful people, but I've also come across some very not so wonderful people, which, you know, and like you probably have done yourself, haven't you? You know, people come to the house and they'll probably say horrible things and negative things in views to probably putting other paranormal teams off. Do you have that quite often, or do people just put rave reviews all the time?
Well, you know, kind of backing up a little bit, when I started doing the house and all the TV shows started coming, you know, I was still pretty green then, and I felt I'm just so lucky to have like become friends with everybody that's filmed here. So like as I'm cutting my teeth in the paranormal, I'm learning from Paranormal State, Ghost Adventures, Ghost Lab, Dead Files, Kindred Spirit, like all these Amy and Nick and, you know, all these people are becoming my friends and teaching me what they know, you know. So I'm like, and Nick and I have been buddies, brothers, you know, since then. But I've been doing this for so long. I've just seen so many people get into this field, and then they try and be, you know, they're cocky and they know everything there is to know, and they put other people down and they start running their mouth and they're gone within a year. I've seen it happen a million times. Like, just be cool. I mean, it takes a lot of effort to be a jerk.
Yeah, it definitely does.
And, you know, from my musician background, Randy Rhoads, who played for Ozzy Osbourne, probably one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived, every tour stop he would go with Ozzy, he would find a local musician in that town and take a guitar lesson, because he said there's always something to learn.
I think that's true, though, isn't it? You know, there's always, you know, I hate the term expert, because nobody's an expert, are they?
An expert on something we have no idea. Like I did a TV show, and I was doing it's about a cryptozoology type thing. And they're like, well, where'd you get your degree in cryptozoology? Like, a degree? Like, it's not even a recognized science. No school teaches something that you can.
Exactly.
I mean, like, what? Yeah, I mean, just, it's not hard just to be cool with everybody, you know?
No.
There's always something to learn from somebody. I don't know anything.
I'm sure you do. You know an awful lot about that house. You know an awful lot about that house. So what's your next steps now? What's the plans going forwards for you?
G Crew. We've been doing a lot with that. We're wanting to take that across the United States, tour a bus, and do a lot of like stops in different cities once everything is finally back to normal. You know, that was our plan from the get-go. The whole 2020 year screwed that up, but understandably. So once everything gets back to normal, we want to go town to town, tour bus, do live G Crew podcasts in front of people with guests, and That's kind of the plan as of now. I don't know. I'm starting to feel like I'll kind of go in waves to where I just need to be normal for a little bit, but then I realize that I can't be normal. Like I'm really fascinated by what's normal. I'm really into aliens again.
Well, we have a gentleman called Dave Hodrian who's going to be doing a presentation on UFOs on the festival this weekend. So it's, it is something for everybody, which, I'm glad we did that because, cryptozoology is, the study of codes, isn't it? And things like that. So, maybe we have something on, probably later on next year that we can discuss in more detail with regards to codes and cracking them and things like that. But it's
like over here, like right in the middle of our shutdown, the Pentagon came out and said, we have in our possession off-world vehicles not made from this planet. And nobody cared because Tiger King was on. And I'm just like, this is the biggest announcement that the government is saying we have UFOs, like off-world vehicles. And Department of Defense opened up a new UFO unit and they said they're going to make all their findings public. I mean, that's huge.
That is huge.
And nobody cares.
It's like Elon Musk, though, sending the car to space, isn't it? It's, who's to say we're not going to see that back down here anytime soon because they don't want it up there with them.
Exactly. And then, one of my best friends, John Tenney, and he gets my mind going with like, what if Loch Ness Monster is the ghost of a dinosaur? So I love going I learned long ago, like when I said I came to the house, I was very much alien conspiracy guy, but with ghosts, I was like, bleh. It's like, if you're going to be weird, you have to be full weird. You can't be selective weird, So I'm just like going full blown weird this year, hopefully. So
just stay true to yourself, COVID. Yeah. I think COVID's kind of brought that back out in people, hasn't it? It's kind of, being locked down with, friends, even in these social bubbles, as they like to call them. I've probably not seen anybody since March time. Wow. I've seen Karen very briefly. And it's been a tough year for everybody, I think. It's one of those years that kind of is going to stick out for all of the wrong reasons, I think.
Yeah. And, everything's kind of lifted over here, which it shouldn't be, but that's a whole different conversation. I kind of miss lockdown, honestly, because like me and my two kids would go on long drives out into the country and we'd have a picnic. And that was just so much fun. And it was bringing it back to that family, 100 years ago, what families would do. Or not even 100 years ago, when I was a kid, what families would do before technology.
Obviously, when we were kids, there were no, we had no internet, did we? We had, we'd be out on our bikes, out all day, and it'd be the essence of, what time are you home when the street lights come on?
Yeah,
that's when I'll be home.
Yeah, my mom we would go play in the woods and at the river. Mom would have no idea where we were at, just be home by dark. And that was before all this kidnapping and like all this horrible stuff. I mean, nobody, like middle of Iowa, nothing's happening, and we were blessed. We're like the pioneers. Like nobody's going to have what we had,
Yeah.
And
that is the beauty of it. But I'm just conscious of your time. And I really, really do thank you for talking to me about what you've got coming up and about what you've been doing. But for the guys who are watching, you can catch up with Johnny on VidiSpace, as he mentioned. And do you have your own Instagram, or where can people follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the social medias, just as I've gotten lucky with /Johnny Houser, JohnnyHouser. I'm on a bunch of random things on Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime, and I'll see stuff pop up from 10 years ago. I'm like, wow, I looked young. The beard was very tiny back then.
Oh, but I really do thank you for talking to me about your experiences and about everything that you've been through with the house. And, hopefully 2021 gets to see the G Crew on the road, and hopefully, one day soon you might be here in the UK. You never know.
That would be a dream come true.
Okay, well, that's all from me and Johnny this evening. So we will be back shortly with